Hi everyone, good afternoon. I am here with Zara because I thought that I could call this nap time reflections, but I cannot because she woke up, of course, promptly as soon as I put her brother down. So she does not feel like going back down right now, and we're gonna respect that. But I had to have my lunch because I preach balance, and balance I must have. So she's just gonna have to chill and entertain herself a little bit with some toys on the floor while mama eats something. I made myself just a quick little caprese salad. It's really not that interesting. The turkey's a weird touch. I just wanted some extra protein. It tastes kind of odd, but it's burrata cheese and Roma tomato and an arugula mix. With fresh basil. That's all delicious, but the turkey's just kind of an odd combination, but I just felt like I needed some extra protein. So really fast, I was just thinking, I saw that it is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I have mixed feelings about this because obviously it's amazing to have Hispanic Heritage Month, but seeing it kind of reminds me of my own lack, I guess, of Hispanic culture. So I haven't really talked about it in my intro or anything, but I am Cuban and Puerto Rican, and that's not technically, I guess, that much of a mix because they're both Caribbean countries. But I have always felt mixed, and I've always felt very out of place because growing up, so my mom is from Camagüey, Cuba, and my dad is from Miami, and I was born in Miami, in Hialeah actually, and we left when I was 3, and I have 2 older brothers, and they actually both, their first language was Spanish, and it's kind of funny. There was a video of our last night in Miami at my grandmother's house, and my dad said, Naomi, say something in Spanish. And I said, no quiero. And maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes later, he said, Naomi, say something in Spanish again. And I said, I already did that, Dad. I mean, I'm like 3 years old, so I didn't even know 3-year-olds spoke like that, but apparently they do. I did. So I think that's a perfect segue into the fact that I've never spoken Spanish fluently. It's never been a language that I've spoken fluently. I understand it pretty fluently. I can get the gist of things. I might not know like word for word what I'm like reading, but like if I were to read something, I could get the gist of what I'm reading. I could survive conversationally if I absolutely had to, but I think maybe it's a pride thing. I don't want to be wrong, and it's easier to just not speak it than to be wrong. So I've kind of just always told people I don't speak Spanish. So I left Florida when I was 3, and we've moved all over my whole life because my dad was in school, and he was going to school and seminary to become a pastor. And it's even more ironic because they have Hispanic ministries. They've always pastored Hispanic communities, but Hispanic communities within very mostly white communities. And so we lived in Tennessee really, really briefly, then Oklahoma and Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then we moved to Kentucky when I was in middle school. And obviously Texas was probably the most diverse place I've ever lived, but I didn't live there very long. I left as I was entering middle school. I left in 7th grade. But I've just always really felt like the white person in the room if I'm with Hispanics, and I feel like the Hispanic person in the room in a room full of white people. So I've never really felt like culturally, I never really grew up around Hispanics somehow, even though that's what my parents' ministry focus was. I've never spoken the language fluently. I don't know my extended family well at all. They live in California and Florida respectively, and I've met a handful of them. I have cousins I've never met in person. So you get the gist. I just grew up not knowing that side of my culture, and so I just feel, I love change and I love moving and I love traveling. It's definitely made me who I am. I'm a very outgoing person. I can talk to anybody, but culturally, I don't feel grounded in an identity of being Hispanic. And that's really hard for me because I think part of me so badly wants to relate, and there are things that I know and little nuances that I know of, and so I feel like I can relate, and then it's really quickly evident that I cannot. Like I just so many times I have been put on the spot and basically told that I'm not really Hispanic. I had a mentor when I used to work for Delta Airlines, and I had a mentor in Atlanta that told me, so he was Puerto Rican, and I said, oh, I'm Puerto Rican. And I told him that, you know, my dad is Puerto Rican. He was born in Miami. He's like, oh, so you're not really Puerto Rican then. And I'm like, okay, well, that's offensive. Because I like that part of my identity. I don't want to pretend that I'm not something that I feel like I am. But from people that are, you know, steeped in that culture and that's their whole lives, they look at me like I'm a fraud, and it's just really difficult for me because I so badly want to identify and relate to that. And then, you know, on the opposite spectrum, I don't know, it's difficult. Just recently, a couple of days ago, someone close to me came into the room, and when I'm cooking, I listen to a lot of like Bomba Estéreo, and I listen to Juan Luis Guerra, just that Pandora station. It's awesome. You should listen to it. But it's really just fun, and I cook to it. No matter what I'm really cooking, I always have Spanish music playing, and my kids are really used to it and dance around. It's just fun. But yeah, so this person walked in and heard it and was like, ooh, fun, ethnic music playing. And I said, well, it's not really ethnic in this house because that's my culture. And he said, well, what are they saying then? Can you understand everything? Because if not, then it's ethnic. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, and the thing is, I knew the title, but like word for word, especially, I mean, they're singing really fast. Like, there are definitely things I'm not picking up, but music is pretty universal and it's just fun. Hey girl, you okay? Anyway, all that to say, I find myself constantly trying to kind of prove myself. I know with my own children, I don't want you looking at the camera. I know with my own children, I kind of wanted them to have, so my last name was Alvarez, it was Alvarez, and when I got married, I changed it to Laufenberger, because that's my husband's last name, and I wanted to feel like we were one, and you know, I was fully committed to this marriage, so I did not keep any part of my last name. I don't actually have a middle name, so I really now wish that I'd left it as my middle name or hyphenated, which I'll do down the line actually, because I really miss having that as part of my name. But so anyway, when it came to naming children, I desperately wanted to find a way to find a name that would flow, like a Spanish aspect to my kids' names, because I don't want them to lose that. They already look like super white. And people see me, honestly, and think, you know, where are you from? Because they can't pinpoint it, because to them I don't look super Hispanic, but I don't look white. And so they just, you know, I always get that, where are you from? What are you? And yeah, so with my kids, I wanted to feel like, you know, I was giving them a part of that that's not going to get lost. Especially because I say like commands to them in Spanish, but I don't want to teach them something incorrectly, so I don't speak to them in Spanish much. I sing in Spanish every so often, but again, I just don't want to be wrong. So, but they have Cuban grandparents and, Cuban great-grandparents in town, and then my parents in town about 20 minutes away. So the possibility is there, but I mean, I grew up with them and I didn't learn Spanish, so I wouldn't really trust them entirely to bridge that gap. But anyway, all that to say, I'm so glad that there is a Hispanic Heritage Month, but I just wanted to say, for the people who feel, if there's other people that feel like they're on this mixed spectrum of not really belonging, I see you, and I've been there, and I've felt it, and I still feel it. I'm an adult who really doesn't care what people think most of the time, but that is something that I really, really struggle with. So much so, Jane the Virgin was something that I just, oh my goodness, love that show. And the episode, I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. The episode of Michael and Jane's wedding, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it at this point, like, too bad. But the episode where he says the vows in Spanish gets me every single time. Just obviously just thinking about it, I tear up, because it was such a powerful way to connect to her culture and make it a part of that. And it upsets me because when I got married, I didn't even contemplate. I had Spanish music at my reception, like big band kind of Spanish music I thought would be fun for the reception, but I didn't even contemplate putting anything Spanish as a part of my my ceremony. And my Cuban grandparents, man, they've lived here since my mom was 6 is when she came over. And so they've lived here a long time, like 50 something years. And they don't speak English fluently, which that's a whole nother thing. But the fact that they were there and sitting there watching me get married and there was nothing Spanish about my ceremony really still breaks my heart. Just because it honestly wasn't even on my radar. So when I saw that episode, I had a little bit of an identity crisis, because I was at the same time attending a part of a very close family friend's wedding. I was a bridesmaid in Miami. And so literally, like, I didn't have kids yet, and Mark and I had been married a couple of years at that point. And I flew down to Florida, and I was spending a lot of time by myself because the bride was working and doing other things. And so I'm hanging out and I'm just seeing the culture and seeing all these people who are so grounded in their identity and in their cultures, whatever they might be. I'm just jealous. I'm jealous that you have that you have this groundedness and this assurance that, like, this is who you are. And yeah, so I saw that episode right before I went to the beach and right before I went to Florida, and saw all this. And so I was really weepy and mopey, just thinking, I mean, I adore my husband. He is a wonderful man, and I don't deserve him. But at the same time, it's just the thought of, like, it never even crossed my mind to want to be with a Hispanic person, and I don't. I love my life, and I love my husband, and I love our kids, but it was just the thought of, like, the fact that never even crossed my mind bothered me. And so I came back home and I said, when we have a baby, I want to make sure that